The two things I want out of this video is, number one, a very civil comment section. And number two, I hope my message comes across.
Marcosatsu.
So I've been watching Tokusatsu for a very long time, also making content about it. And I think a lot of us share a very similar story, at least in English-speaking countries or in America, where we grew up watching Power Rangers, and then that led towards this rabbit hole of finding out about Super Sentai, and then Kamen Rider, and the rest of the Tokusatsu. And despite me growing up with Power Rangers, it kind of seems like I don't really talk about Power Rangers that much. I sure have talked a lot about Kamen Rider, Ultraman, and Super Sentai, but Power Rangers I only rarely bring up. So I guess now I should say, do I prefer Power Rangers, the show I grew up with, or Super Sentai, the show I watched more of and have more content about? My recent video about IGN's article going over Super Sentai versus Power Rangers sure did spark a lot of debate. And that's what got me to thinking about this certain video. Don't worry, I'm not going to go over the article again. This is just going to be about the topic of Power Rangers versus Super Sentai, what do I prefer? And I do want to go over this comment that was in the video. I watch both. Super Sentai has more adult scenes. They show blood, Rangers getting killed. For Power Rangers, they turn down the violence and change everything for kids and learning a lesson. This comment specifically stuck out to me because it reminded me of my early days online. Growing up, I watched Toonami, which had a lot of these English dubbed animes. And that was around the time I was getting on the internet. And one of my favorite shows, Zatch Bell, again, completely random, I actually started watching more of the sub version. And in the comment section of those YouTube videos, I saw a lot of comments saying, oh wow, this show has swearing. And that means it's 10 times better than the dub version that doesn't swear. And that's where I'm focusing on with this comment. It reminds me a lot of those comments. Super Sentai has more adult scenes. It shows blood. It shows our childhood heroes getting killed on screen. And those reasons somehow make Super Sentai a lot more worthwhile to watch, according to this comment. I've seen a lot of comments like this before. Super Sentai is better because it's darker. It's mature. But what does that mean? Power Rangers can be mature. Power Rangers has a lot of darker scenes. What's the difference with Super Sentai? Is it because they allow for a little bit more? Not even that much more, just a little bit more than what Power Rangers is able to show? And as this highlight says, for Power Rangers, they turn down the violence. They change everything for kids and learning a lesson. Bestie, I'm not sure how to tell you this, but Power Rangers and Super Sentai are kid shows. Of course, I'm not devaluing these kid shows. I love these kid shows. That's why I have a whole channel about them. I personally feel like comments like these are the ones that are devaluing the shows. They change everything for kids. Yeah, Super Sentai has things for kids. They have lessons that are learned for kids. When it comes to this debate, there is going to be a lot of back and forth. For example, both shows do have lessons for kids. Maybe Power Rangers is more upfront about it. Maybe they turn to the camera and say, hey kids, remember to brush your teeth. While Super Sentai is more subtle about it. But I can also show you examples of those roles being reversed. I can show you examples of Super Sentai almost winking at the camera, telling you, hey, it's okay to be yourself. Like I said, a lot of back and forth. There are lessons to be learned in kid shows, because these are kid shows. Power Rangers and Super Sentai have both been very subtle and very in your face about it at various times during like their 20 plus years, or Super Sentai, their 50 years of existence. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, yeah, a lot of those lessons were pretty much upfront. They were daily, brush your teeth, don't gamble at pachinko machines, don't get addicted. And they pretty much say that at the end of each episode. They're like, oh, Rocky, you know you're not supposed to play at pachinko too much, or else it'll become your whole life, and it'll be really bad for you.
There's a time for work and a time for play.
There's an old saying that goes, all play and no work can make a person a real jerk.
But then as more Power Rangers shows keep going, we see a lot of those lessons not being outspoken as much. Instead, they're more weaving into the plot and they don't say it outright. And while in Super Sentai, a lot of the early shows were action-oriented, they still were focused on kids. They still had to do with certain lessons. They might not have been spoken outright, but they were there. That also continues to the modern day. Cure Major, one of my favorite Super Sentai shows of all time. It does a lesson of the week formula while also trying to be its own thing, of course, with its own story and its own action. I should probably stop saying that because you already know. And as a direct example, one of my favorite episodes is really early on in Cure Major, where the Blue Ranger tries to act like this really tough guy and that nothing will ever hurt him or change him, and he has to be this emotionless, stoic person. But then the Red Ranger straight up tells him at the end of the episode, hey, it's okay to not be that way. It's okay to let your guard down. It's okay to be yourself. That's a really good lesson for kids. That was told straight up. So the subtlety and the directness changes between American and Japanese shows, but they're still there. I don't know if one's outright better than the other. I think that fits into my point. Both sides can do what this person is trying to say. Both sides have done what this person is trying to say. Power Rangers has killed off Rangers. Power Rangers has shown blood. Super Sentai has things for kids. Super Sentai has a learning a lesson type of story when it comes to them. And I'm glad there aren't that many comments saying why Super Sentai is so good just because it's the original and Power Rangers has to rip it off, because that's not really true. There are way more comments validating Power Rangers' existence. There are a lot of comments saying that both Power Rangers and Super Sentai are valid in their own ways. Because they are. One of my least favorite argument points when it comes to Power Rangers is that Power Rangers is just a ripoff of Super Sentai because they grab footage from the original show. Yeah, that's the point of an adaptation. They take parts of the old show and try to make it for a different audience. And that's always been my mindset. Power Rangers is for a completely different audience than Super Sentai. In Japan, they can get away with more light swearing and some more blood being shown on screen, but that doesn't automatically make it better. Blood and light swears like damn and hell don't automatically make a show better. And when Power Rangers does try to be more one-to-one to the Japanese Sentai, it still is its own experience. For example, Wild Force and Gao Ranger are very similar shows. Gao Ranger gets away with showing a little bit more, while toning that a little bit down in Wild Force actually kind of pushes its messages even more. Being more subtle in certain ways shows a lot more, and I feel like that's why I kind of prefer Wild Force over Gao Ranger. Or when Power Rangers is adapting certain seasons, it's just completely different. Mighty Morphin and Zyuranger may seem like very similar shows on the surface, but once you watch them, Mighty Morphin embraces some of the goofiness of Zyuranger, but also tries to make it cool. And they try to show off that, yeah, fighting these bad guys are really awesome. And you have these giant robots, these giant Megazords. And isn't it cool? They're morphing, but it's also silly at the same time. It's goofy, but it really amps it up. While in Zyuranger, it's a lot more calm, and they do focus more on a child of the week formula while trying to tell like this child's story, and the story is a bit more slow, and they really take their time when it comes to character development. But they both still share the same fight footage, same Megazord footage, and you can get two different experiences from what appears to be the same thing. Even if they use the exact same footage, the music changes or the sound effects, they make them completely different. A completely different viewing experience from Mighty Morphin to Zyuranger. And not to mention, I think the Zyuranger theme is an absolute banger. I love it. But I think Zyuranger is incredibly boring. As much as I don't like Mighty Morphin, I would rather watch the goofy, fun zaniness of Mighty Morphin over Zyuranger. And of course, not to mention the one Power Rangers show I just love to death. Power Rangers RPM. RPM compared to Go Onger, they're just two completely different shows. They share some of the same fight footage and a lot of the same Megazord footage. That's about it. Everything else is just a whole 180 of what Go Onger is supposed to be. Go Onger is really goofy. It's a really fun, upbeat kind of show while also talking about fighting pollution with the main villains, but the Go Ongers are really fun, and while they do have serious moments, it is meant to be more of a comedic show. While Power Rangers RPM is post-apocalyptic. It is a very sad, depressing kind of show while also trying to bring up hope, trying to find your place in this world where it seems like there is no world left. And it works. Two completely different shows, two completely different tones, and they both work. And there's also a very small point, but I don't think it's too fair to say that Sentai is a lot better than Power Rangers just because it has more content, because it was the original. I mean, yeah, duh. Super Sentai came out decades before Power Rangers even became a thought in Saban's mind. So, of course, Super Sentai is going to have a lot more content, and there's a lot more to digest there. But not all of it is good. I mean, do I need to bring up Goggle 5? I mean, no one's going to remember Goggle 5. Wow, that's the second time I brought up Goggle 5 in a video in 1 week. So, no hate to like the two Goggle 5 fans out there. It was a joke. By the end of it all, I think Power Rangers just deserves a little more respect. I know I joke around a lot about, oh, Power Rangers is so silly. What are they doing anymore? But they do deserve all that respect. There's a lot of work trying to adapt this 50 episode show or season into this 40 episode kind of Power Rangers show, while trying to make things cohesive, while trying to tape things together and glue things and stick things together and hope it works. And then we still end up with products like Samurai or Megaforce. And you know what? As disliked as they are, I still respect the work that got put into them. I think Power Rangers deserves as much respect as a tokusatsu, as part of this medium, as Super Sentai. Yeah, even as much as Kamen Rider. So, what do I prefer? Power Rangers or Super Sentai? It doesn't matter. They're both their own shows. It's fun to debate. It's fun to say, oh yeah, Power Rangers does this better, Super Sentai does this better. But it doesn't matter. What really matters is that you enjoy these shows. And if you try to die on this hill that one franchise is better than the other, just because of something minor that probably doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things, I think someone took that too seriously. I take Toku seriously. I love Toku. I love both of these shows. I love all of these shows. But I also like just watching them. Sorry for the clickbait title. I had this deep down in my heart for like years, and this IGN video I put out recently really solidified the point that I do need to say this. Power Rangers needs to be respected. It is a very good show, and despite all the hits and misses, Super Sentai has hits and misses. But they're still both very good franchises that we grew up with, that we love. And I personally will keep watching Power Rangers because I love it. So, Power Rangers versus Super Sentai? Why not both?